Welcome back to Dump It, the podcast where we get every dirty detail of every single story. And if you're nosy, this is the place for you. This week, I am joined by my best friend from the last 15 years, Hannah.
Howdy.
And I wanted to bring her on today because, first, she's the funniest person I've ever met. And second, she has a really good perspective on a lot of hot topics right now. And I wanted to bring her on because we live in Utah, and something that's always kind of coming and going is people leaving the Mormon church. So we'll get to that. But first, I wanted to kind of introduce Hannah and talk a little bit about how we met and our friendship and how we got to where we are today. So how did we meet?
Youth group. Just the old Wednesday night.
So we both went to the same church, which was a non-denominational Christian church. Mm-hmm. But we went to the same youth group, but we didn't talk. Like, we weren't friends. Mm-mm. But we had a mutual friend. She invited us both to a sleepover the same night. And that's how we met. Like, that's how we became friends.
Yeah, it's like probably the first time I ever remembered talking to you. Yeah, my strongest memory from that was you brought this bag of uncooked beans.
It was just like
to the party.
Unwashed, unboiled beans, which I have not cooked even today as an adult. I don't know why I brought them. I vividly remember that I was so nervous that Hannah was going to be there that I was like, I have to do something to make her remember me. I have to dazzle her.
You have to dazzle the girl who did not wax her eyebrows or wear deodorant or any of that.
I thought you were so cool. I just had to do it. I wanted to be your friend so bad. Yeah, so we went to the same sleepover. We hit it off.
The girl fell asleep that invited us, and we stayed up at her house just talking the entire night, and we just left together.
Yeah, we never separated after that.
No.
We were like one unit of a person, which is so hard when you have a friendship like that because you're so invested in each other's lives that I think that we both have a unique perspective because of how much tension this caused our friendship. Because I was raised as a non-denominational Christian, and I was not born in Utah. I moved to Utah. So I didn't know anything about being Mormon. And when I moved here, the culture was very much so, Mormon church, and you go to church and everybody goes to the same ward and you go to Young Women's. And I was so outside of that it left a bad taste in my mouth. So I was very against it. So I think that was the biggest point of contention in our friendship. And so I want to get, how did you even end up joining the church? Like, where did that start for you?
Yeah. So I was actually not even raised LDS as well. I converted when I was 14. I was raised going to an Episcopalian church, and
I don't even know what that is.
No, I don't either. Like, I think it's like light Catholicism. Episcopalian.
Sounds like a reptile.
Yeah, I'm an Episcopalian. But I don't really remember a lot about it. I know that you were baptized in that church when you were a baby.
So you're still Episcopalian?
No. That's all I know is that I wasn't baptized, but they would do like the water on your forehead.
No, that's what the Catholics do. They bless their babies when they're born.
Yes.
Because Sophia
I never had that.
Got baptized at a Catholic church.
Yeah. And so like
I'm
Catholicism.
I'm not Catholic.
We don't know what we're talking about. We're not religious scholars.
No.
But I don't remember a ton about it. I remember learning about kind of basic Bible stories, life of Jesus. They always had Christmas pageants. I was the narrator one year. I liked ringing the big bell in the front. Made a lot of noise. Felt pretty cool. But religion was not a huge part of my life. And eventually we did switch to, again, this church where we met. And I don't know. I never really felt like I fit in at any church because, I wasn't a good Episcopalian. I wasn't baptized. I didn't go to a lot of the activities because it was far away. And with this non-denominational church, I did not like the culture. The culture of the youth group was just toxic. I was like literally 11 and I'm like, this is toxic.
And then there's me and I'm like, I love these boys. See, I didn't go to youth group for Jesus either. I went to youth group because I was in love with every single boy that went to youth group.
Absolutely. And it was just messy. There was so much drama.
And
I'm like, for what? We are sixth graders. Like, I should not want to die because this sixth grade boy doesn't have a crush on me, and I'm praying to God to make him have a crush on me. This should not be happening. I'm not old enough for this, but regardless, that was what was going on. And I mean, I knew about the Mormon church because I
It's Utah.
lived in Utah. I was born in Utah. I have been raised in Utah. I still live in Utah. And actually, my dad was Mormon growing up. I didn't know this until a little bit later on. But I mean, he kind of, I think subconsciously or maybe consciously, just kind of tried to steer us away from stuff like that. If we ever talked about it, he'd be like, I don't want you to go to activity days. Eventually, I did go and I made bread with the neighbors. And another time, I was invited to actually go to church on Sunday. And I just remember going in, having it feel pretty familiar compared to the Episcopalian church. It was, you sat in pews, they were going to do the sacrament, which was familiar to me as communion, and they bring along a tray, has bread in it. I take the bread, everything goes off without a hitch. There had been this man staring at me from the stands. I just clocked him the minute I walked in, and I was like, you know that I don't belong here. And when the water came around, I drank the water, but then I put my empty cup back in with all of the full cups because I didn't see that there was a little place underneath to put your empty cup. And so I just set it in there, and I was like, someone else is going to drink my empty cup. And this man just laughed at me. He was, I don't know if he was the bishop, if he was just someone that was speaking. Don't remember that part, but I just remember him laughing at me, and I was like, okay, so I am other. This was a really defining moment for me. Like, I am other than the Mormons. They have othered me. I am in a different group. I am different
You're
from them.
not Mormon.
Exactly. And it was obvious. And so I was like, okay, they're always going to treat me like an other.
It's so weird, like the differences in each ward, because like
Yes.
I would go to church when I was in 5th grade. I remember so clearly because I moved into this neighborhood in Utah, and this was my first real experience with Mormons, and everybody went to the same ward, and the children in my neighborhood were not allowed to play with me because I wasn't Mormon.
Yes.
And so I wanted to become Mormon because I wanted to have friends. And so I went with them to church. And I remember it clearly because it was on my birthday. And so apparently all I wanted for my birthday was to go to the Mormon church.
Good gift.
And my friend's dad, they were doing sacrament. And he said, you are not Mormon, so you cannot take this. So just pass it when it comes to you. And then we went to primaries, and they gave me so much candy. So that was my like really only experience with the church.
Yeah,
It's just so
odd.
random.
It just depends on the old white man you're dealing with, I
Yes.
think.
And it is like a lot of the Mormon culture is like the society around. It's not like Mormon doctrine. It's like this is what we think you should do.
Yes. No, absolutely. And I don't know, despite all these little negatives, I was still like, I got that feeling that you had, just, oh, I want to belong. I want to belong with these people. They seem happy. I want to fit in. And that was really formative. That kind of led me to joining the church ultimately. I kind of just like allowed myself to become a project for my friends because, the Mormons are nice and they like projects. They like people who are works in progress, and they want to convert you. They want you to have the happiness that they feel that they have.
And it's like instilled in them from a young age.
No,
and I don't
completely.
think they're doing it to be like salespeople.
It's
They're
not
doing it because they
malicious.
think they're like saving your life.
No, they want to share their salvation.
Yeah.
They want you to experience the joy that they have.
And then 5th grade Victoria was like, no.
And I was like, please let me in.
I was
I'll
like,
do anything.
let's debate theology when I'm 10. And my friends were like, girl, we just want to hang out with you at Young Women's.
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess it was activity days. I did go to Young Women's Girls Camp because I was still trying to fit in. I think this was around actually when you joined the church
Probably.
because I was jealous. And so I went to girls camp, and it just solidified that I could never go back to the church because like they had this Joseph Smith skit where like these two guys were acting out like a portion of the Book of Mormon, and I was so bored. I was like, why are they doing this? They're putting so much effort in, and I'm tired.
You're like, I don't have service. I didn't
I don't have
shower.
phone
I want to
service.
go home.
Yeah. It was
I
like
don't care.
a 5-minute drive from my house. I was like, someone take me out of here.
I was always in the wilderness. I swear I went so far away from my house. I could not go home if I wanted to, and I did. I did want to.
Did you go to the church that we went to together? Did you go to the camp?
Oh yeah, I went to the very first camp
That
that
was
they
so
did.
dramatic. I loved it.
Just there's too much drama in
You
all
were
the
so
churches.
anxious because you were innocent. Like you were just innocent and nice. You were nice to everybody, but I lived for the drama. I was like, hey, we're 12. We're fist fighting at the church camp.
Pull her hair. Go Jesus.
Go Jesus. And then everybody's like sobbing around the campfire. And then 5 minutes later, they're like, he likes you, but he likes me. This is what church was to me. This is everything I thought about revolving God. Do the boys like me?
Yeah.
If you could not tell, I did have some problems with insecurity.
It's fine. So did I. I just expressed it in different ways. I was very insecure about these boys, but, you know,
Instead of diving further in, you just ran as far away as you could.
Absolutely.
Right. And you had a different opinion of like, we should not be here for this. Like this should
completely.
be about God.
It was very holier than thou of me as, you know, this like little adolescent just trying to be like, we need standards in this youth group. We should not be having baby showers for pregnant 15-year-old girls. And I was like, this is a hot take, you know?
This is a hot take.
I felt like I was trying to hold myself to a higher standard. I don't care about any of that now.
Yeah.
But at the time, I was like, I feel like church should be about something more than
like
this.
Higher values, higher morals.
And so, like, the first time that I actually really seriously considered Mormonism as my life path was when I had a sleepover with one of my friends. And she was like, come to church with me in the morning. It'll be fun. And the lesson was on the law of chastity, which, I mean, I'm not qualified to explain anything in Mormon terms correctly, but it's essentially like the doctrine that it's like, hey, you shouldn't, you know, have sex before marriage, you should abstain, these things should be between man and woman, and like only within the bonds of marriage, just everything like that. And I was like, oh, this kind of slaps. And she was like, this is the worst lesson, I'm so sorry I brought you this day. And I was like, no, I like it. I know, I was like, this is nice.
And how did you meet that friend? Through school?
Yeah, I met her in 5th grade. And so, like, she was kind of just always on the periphery of my other friend groups. And I did have this little fake 7th grade boyfriend, and she was his best friend. And so as I was, you know, texting this boy, I love you, even though we've never spoken in person, we started becoming friends because of the connection that we had there. And
that just gave me so many flashbacks. I forgot all about that because we would sit in my living room at night and just like you would be texting him and we'd be like perfectly curating what you would reply, and we'd be watching the Golden Girls, and it was just like so weird to remember.
But anyway, as I was starting to get interested in the church, that boyfriend who had become like my best friend,
it was a different group.
It was
like
different.
We were best friends, but this is when we started having tension between us, because first of all, I was very jealous that you had these new friends, which was a theme for me. Anytime you had new friends, I was like, I'll kill us all right now. And I also really struggled with the fact that you wanted to become Mormon, because it felt like that was betraying me, like personal betrayal to me, even though it was your decision between you and God. I was like, wow, I can't believe you would do this to me.
Oh, I did it to hurt you. I need you to know that.
I felt like that. I felt like you joined the church because you didn't think I was good enough.
Oh my
like
gosh.
You joined it seemed like that's me. That's what I felt as like a 14-year-old. I was like, she doesn't think I'm good enough to be her friend because I'm not Mormon, and she wants all the cool people to be her friends that don't like us because we're not Mormon.
I did want that to happen, but I didn't want to lose you because of it. I just wanted my cake, and then I wanted to eat it, but I didn't get that. I got religious trauma instead.
Oh my god. Hey, but I'm still here.
You are, and the church is not. Sayonara.
We did come and go a few times, though.
We did.
For no reason.
I'm sure we'll talk about that in another episode.
Yeah. Oh, we're just
wishy-washy as hell. But yeah, so back to these friends. One of the boyfriend, he actually had never been baptized into the church. And so he was like, I'm going to be taking missionary lessons. Do you want to join in on those? And I was like, my parents are not going to let me do that. And they were like, but we can do this in secret. And I was like, ooh. And I mean, I'm 13 and I don't want to listen to what my parents have to say. They don't have anything relevant to say. I just wanted to rebel. And so part of me was I wanted to fit in. I wanted to rebel, but then I also did feel like there was more out there, and the current church situation was not vibing with me.
You wanted that spiritual connection that you weren't getting from the church we went to.
Yes, definitely.
Like you wanted to feel the spirit.
I really did.
And you weren't feeling it there. Mm-mm. We were only feeling the men.
Jealousy.
They were not men.
They were not men. They were boys.
They were
small
prepubescent boys.
One had a beard. Just one. And that was the prime one.
That's the one we all wanted.
But then I started taking these missionary lessons in secret and not telling my mom why I was going over to my friends' houses all the time. And something about missionary lessons is that they're pretty watered down compared to like the full spectrum of the doctrine and culture of the church. They teach you just kind of about the basics, and that had me completely hooked. And I was just like, I love Joseph Smith. I think it's absolutely incredible that he was, a 14-year-old boy just seeking for answers, honest answers. And
I had no idea he was 14.
He was
years
14
old.
when he had the first vision. He was 14. He wanted to know which church was true, and so he prayed.
So he made one.
Well,
no, I'm just kidding.
I'm not a theologian. I don't want any active Mormons to hate me.
I don't know anything. I just didn't know he was that young.
He was 14, so I was like, I'm 13, about to be 14. I really feel...
You connected.
Yes. I really was like, I understand the shoes that he was in. Like, he just wanted to know which church was true, and I wanted that for myself. I wanted to know, and here these missionaries were, and they had all the answers. They made everything sound perfect, and I was hooked. I did learn a little bit more about the church's stance on like the LGBTQ plus community, and those didn't really sit right with me just because like I was not raised to discriminate against anyone. My parents are and were extremely liberal, and that's how I was raised, was just love everybody. Like there's no reason not to love everybody. And so just thinking about how someone just a little bit different than me could lose out on certain blessings, I was like, that doesn't sit right. And the same thing with how African Americans could not have the priesthood until like the 1970s. I was like, I don't think that's from God. So even as a 13-year-old, there were things that didn't sit right with me. I had a gay best friend at the time. I was like, I don't believe this about him. And he was active in the church at the time. I was just like, I can't uphold this. And so this is kind of where I started taking these things that were problematic and putting them up on a shelf. I really like that analogy because eventually your shelf is going to get too heavy to hold all of the things that you have questions and doubts about. And it's going to come crashing down, which, spoiler alert, it did.
If you were wondering where this was going, it's actually Hannah Converts Me.
Yes, yes. We're going to the font after this. I have them all lined up.
Know what that
Water's
is.
warm.
I don't even know what that means. I'm so oblivious. I feel like, do you remember when we toured that temple?
Yes, I made her go to a temple tour, the Provo City Center temple, and it was doing
They made me wear
tours.
little things
White
on my
socks.
shoes.
Mm-hmm. You
And
can't get your grubby citizen feet on their beautiful floor.
And I was like, wow, this room is so elegant, and look at this big old bathtub. And you were like, that's where they baptized the dead. And I was like, what? Shocked. There were so many people.
Oh yeah.
And there was missionaries, and I was like, you got called to Provo, Utah?
Well, I mean, the ones that taught me, they were called to Provo, Utah. They ended up in Heber. And I'm like, I didn't think they'd ever find anybody, but here I am.
They come to my house so much. And we're always like, hey guys, we've told you to stop coming to our house. They just keep coming. I watch too much reality TV.
I would say.
So you had these doubts. You were putting them on a shelf because you still very strongly felt like this church is true.
Yes.
And so you thought more so like these were kind of ideas and rules created by man, but they didn't come from God.
Yes.
So you went from Episcopalian a little bit to Christian to searching for more, and then you got baptized.
Yes. And that was a really difficult day because my parents and sister did show up, even though I wasn't sure that they would. And I just remember feeling so torn between like my new family, my church family, and my literal family. And at that time, I was fully wanting to believe. I mostly believed it was true. And I still just partially wanted to spite my parents.
It's like 80-20.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I got baptized. I was like, I finally am going to belong. And everything feels amazing. But I never actually did, because as a convert, I found out really quickly that I was at a disadvantage from everyone else that had been raised and educated in the church growing up. I hadn't even read the Book of Mormon all the way through, and I still haven't to this day.
Well, and they were raised that way from birth. So from the
Yeah.
time they're toddlers, they're
Yeah.
having family home evening and they're
yeah.
reading scriptures with their parents. So like this is just like in their brain. Like they know it. Just like
No.
how I was raised reading the Bible. So I just know these biblical stories.
Yeah.
That's how they were raised. But you had to catch up.
And
so you
I
had to like
couldn't.
cram it.
Yes, it was years and years of knowledge that I was lacking that I wouldn't ever gain. I just started off on the wrong foot. And like I would try to go to seminary. They would ask me to speak. They would ask questions. And I would have panic attacks. I could not go to
it's overwhelming.
seminary. I said cemetery.
Get
Felt
in
like a
the
cemetery.
grave. He says, if you don't know the answer to this, we will bury you.
Absolutely. That's how it felt. And so I did not graduate from seminary. I couldn't take the pressure. And because I just felt like I didn't understand and I would never catch up or be good enough, I just slowly started to become inactive. So I made the choice to get baptized, but then the church really quickly became a very small part of my life and my daily thoughts.
Well, because when you were baptized, we were not on good terms.
You were
'cause
so mean. She sent me a Facebook message. I really want to go find it and then just like add it to the
I'll put it
notes
on
of this.
Instagram.
Yeah.
I wonder if we can find it.
I bet we could.
I bet we could.
But she was just like, you are so fake. You just did this to be popular and yada, yada, yada. And I was like, there's truth to it, but it hurts.
You're right. But I'm not going to say you're right. No, I just felt I was jealous. Because I wanted to fit in that group, but it's like my mind could not accept that. Like I didn't feel that desire to be in part of the church. So I was just like, what? and it felt personal because I had known you and you were my best friend and I felt like I knew you better than anyone else.
Yeah.
And it almost felt like it was a secret because I didn't know you were taking missionary lessons. Like I didn't know that you were going to church with these friends. And then all of a sudden you were baptized. And I remember when you posted the picture on Facebook and I think that's what I messaged
Probably.
you. And I was like, I hate you and I want to be you. But then I felt like pretty fast after that, we just became friends again. Like it was like a week. And then like, you know how it is when you're 14. And then we didn't really have any struggles. Like we were very solidly friends throughout high school.
Yeah. And like religion just like didn't really play a part in it
we
for a
both
while.
Kind of stopped going to church.
Yeah.
Like when I became a teenager, I think probably at 15, my parents stopped going to church and I stopped going to church. And then you weren't active in the church, so we just hung out all the time.
All the time.
Yeah. And we didn't really talk about it. Like we didn't
No.
have the need to try to prove ourselves to anyone. You were still like, it was like a Jack Mormon. Like you were Mormon,
Exactly.
but you didn't practice.
Mormon in name only. And then, I mean, you got married and you moved away. And kind of at that time, I was like, I need more connection. And so I started craving the connection that I felt in the church. And I started going,
you missed me.
I did.
You had a hole in your heart and you filled it with God.
I went back because you hurt me.
Because I left you. Don't worry, I was not having a good time.
That makes two of us.
We were both experiencing different kinds of trauma.
Absolutely.
And not telling each other about it.
Yes, that's the dumb part.
I
because
know.
We told each other about everything else. I'd be like, I got a zit on my butt. You want to know about it? And yet we're not talking about the deepest parts of our lives.
I know. And we both didn't tell each other anything about what we were truly feeling. And I feel like that made us grow apart because we were obviously both struggling and nobody wanted to say what. So our friendship became very surface level because we really could only communicate on the phone. I mean, you came out, we were together in Hawaii a little bit.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you were going on a mission and I was once again like
in the dark,
super blindsided by it.
Yeah.
And it once again felt kind of like, oh, I'm out of the loop. It kind of feels personal, but I wasn't as mean as I was when we were children.
I don't think you were mean at all.
No,
I
and
don't
I said,
remember
email
it.
me. I was supportive, but
Yeah.
I was confused.
Yeah.
But I didn't say I was confused. I was just like, okay, because I had my own crap going on. And so how did you go from our friendship and then I move away and you start kind of feeling this longing to being on a mission? Explain a little bit what the mission is. Like what is a mission?
So it's a voluntary thing for females and mandatory for males. So when you're 18, as a young man, you are expected to go and serve for 2 years and give up those 2 years of your life. You're not allowed to, have a personal cell phone. You're not allowed to be in school. You're not allowed to have really hobbies.
And it's not paid for by the church.
No, you pay for it yourself. So it's your own personally funded service mission. And they pick where you're going. So you can't be like, I want to go to Hawaii and see my best friend who's struggling. No, they're going to be like, you're going to Ecuador, or Boise, Idaho.
This is something I found so interesting. How do they pick where you specifically go?
I heard that they will literally, so you have to submit a picture as a part of your application to serve a mission because they have to approve you.
They're like, she's ugly. Send her to Provo. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I'm like, I stayed in the United States. Does that mean I'm hideous? I'm not sure. But they put your picture up, as far as I am aware. This could be hearsay. But they put your picture up. They have either one or multiple of the high leaders of the church in the quorum of the 12 apostles that are looking at your photo, and they just feel a prompting and then they assign you. And
I kind of feel New York.
That's what I was hoping for.
It's just this old guy and he's like, Wyoming.
I don't even know if there's a mission in Wyoming. Let's be real.
They're all Mormon already.
People? Yeah.
They can't convert the cows. So you start going back and you went to the singles ward.
Yes. It's between like 18 and 30 something. So I think basically the
range.
purpose of a singles ward is to socialize you and get you married off, because you're all single. It's the singles ward. It's the young single adults ward.
The culture of Utah is you get married real fast.
Yeah.
I got married 10 days after I turned 19, and I thought I was like elderly because
I felt like an old maid at 21.
Yeah, all of our friends were already married immediately after graduation or waiting for a missionary.
Exactly. And that was a little bit a part of my story as well. There was this guy, Bartholomew.
Such a long name.
I call him Bart.
Yeah, it was Bart. So Bart and you had a history.
Yeah, so I had a crush on him since 8th grade.
And you dated.
And we dated like twice for like 3 months each time. And in the middle, he dated my best friend, who was not you.
I forgot about that.
It was the girl who baptized me, basically, who got me baptized into the church. And then they broke up and we dated again, and it was secret and it was bad. And then I was obsessed with him for the rest of high school. I didn't date anybody else. Seriously.
Nope.
I led on a lot of guys. Sorry if you're out there watching this, because I had no real feelings for you. I only cared about Bart.
Yep. Do you remember that one guy that you went on a date with and you were like, I don't want to be here. Please call me.
I made her rescue me many a time from situations.
Then I called her on a date with this one guy, and she's like, I don't want to be here. Like, give me a reason to have to be dropped off, because he drove. So I called and I said I was having like a mental breakdown. And so he dropped her off at my house, but then he came back and he brought me candy and like ice cream.
Ice cream, Redbox movies. He was like, I hope your friend's okay. And then I never spoke to him again.
I felt so bad. We did eat the candy.
Absolutely. And watch the movies, I'm sure.
Yes.
Ice cream didn't go to waste. No melted ice cream there. But Bart ended up going on a mission, and I wrote him every single week he was gone for 2 years. And I was fully expecting that we would...
I didn't know that you did it every week.
Every week. One time I had bad service and it didn't send until like early the next morning. And he was in a foreign country, and so the time difference was pretty extensive. I think it was like 8 or 9 hours difference.
Yeah, he was far.
Yeah, and so I didn't send this message one time, and then I sent it as soon as I woke up and I realized, and he was like, oh, I'm going to count this as the 1 week that you didn't write me. And I was like... But I've slaved away for you. I've paid $40 in international shipping fees to send you Christmas candy.
You're so nice.
It was bad. So, I mean, with that, he was on a mission. He was like, hey, missions are great. I heard all about his life. I was like, okay, I don't have any prospects here. And if you're not getting married, I mean, that's kind of the logical next step within the church culture. So I was like, maybe I should be going on a mission. And I was talking to the bishop of the singles ward. He was really encouraging it. He thought that I would have a lot of good to tell because of my story, that I would do a lot of good, that I would be just an excellent missionary. And I was really starting to feel strongly about doing this.
Because you had a special story, because you were not born in the church.
Yeah. And so he thought that I could appeal to more people and share my testimony with them, and it would just be more impactful that way, because like I made the decision to join the church. They could also make the same decision and have the same happiness that I had. I was just like, okay, I guess I'm going to do it. Even though I've never felt good enough. I never felt like I had the education, the backstory, the
You
strong
also
testimony.
were not a huge fan of public speaking.
I was so mentally unwell.
Or talking on the phone.
I could not talk on the phone. I couldn't order at the drive-thru. So I don't know how I really expected to do this, because it was just like the complete opposite of what my personality was equipped for. I was on medication. It wasn't strong enough. And I was seeing a therapist, not often enough. But I was like, I'm good. I'm getting my prep in. It's fine.
I'm still going to go, though.
Yes. And I was like, hey, this is not going to prevent me from serving. And to prepare, I started looking into, funnily enough, anti-Mormon literature, because I thought no matter where I went, I would encounter people who had questions or doubts, and they would throw that back in my face and try to start an argument with me. And what I really wanted to do was just study all of these possible doubts and concerns that people had that I had seen on the internet, and learn the right answers to them so I could refute them.
Yeah.
Like, I just wanted to know. This came out of just a genuine desire for knowledge.
And you wanted to prepare for any possible situation.
Yeah, I did not want to be rejected. I wanted to be prepared. And so I read what is called the CES letter. This is where a man was approached by an employee of the church educational system, and he was asked, hey, what are your concerns? What can I answer for you? And we're going to
Was he Mormon?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so as he was writing all of these answers for this employee, he kind of started losing his faith, and then he didn't ever get a response back.
Oh gosh.
So he sent it and was like, please, I really want answers, and he never got them. And so then he just started publishing it to share with other people. And
He's
I
like,
read
anyone
that.
know?
Yeah, anyone. And I read that whole thing, and I really started realizing oh, there are a lot more things that I didn't know about.
Yeah.
There are just so many things that are out there that I wasn't aware of.
Because it's deep.
It's
There's
so
a
deep.
lot.
I can't even get into all of it. You can go listen to Mormon Stories or other similar podcasts if you want to know even more about church history.
I love that podcast.
It's great.
I have never been to the church, and I still love that podcast.
She just likes the tea, and that's why we're here.
Yes. I just want to know everything about everyone's life. Even strangers.
True. I mean, I found more things to put up on my little shelf. I was like, oh, I didn't like that. I don't like the way that makes me feel. This doesn't line up with what I believe about science or life in general.
Yeah.
And it still didn't keep me from serving a mission. So I got my mission call to Knoxville, Tennessee.
Well, and did you feel like you had to go on a mission? Did you feel like you would be judged if you didn't?
Yeah, because I was posting about it really heavily on Instagram at the time, because I actually cared about Instagram back then.
Oh, you had good pictures of you.
I had a nice aesthetic feed.
And she took pictures with the flag of Tennessee.
I did. And I mean, I thought that people would be understanding, because I mean, first of all, it wasn't mandatory. And I mean, second of all, I was so anxious and depressed that I think people were more surprised that I did go.
Yes,
and
me.
didn't cancel.
When you left, I was like, oh my gosh.
You're like, you'll be back tomorrow, right?
I really thought that I thought that you would plan to go, and I really thought you wanted to go, but I did not ever think you would go. And then you went for so long.
It wasn't even that long compared, but I was gone. I did leave, and I took that little leap there, and I just said, hey, I got things on my shelf. I don't know anyone that doesn't have a thing on their shelf. I'm just going to go, and I'm going to see if I can do this. And I just thought that I had a good message to share. I thought that even if I was really confused about a lot of the church's teachings or some of the cultural aspects, that I could boil it all down to God loves you. You are a very special person in his eyes, and I want to share that love with you. And I thought I would learn life lessons from people that were different than me. I really wanted it to just be a life-changing experience, even if religion wasn't at the complete forefront. Of course, it's a religious mission. I'm going to talk about Jesus. I'm expected to. But I really just wanted it to be about me sharing love with other people. That was really what ended up pushing me to go out.
And you wanted to help people.
Yes. I mean, there are great service opportunities on missions. You can help so many different people in countless ways.
You go to the MTC. Mm-hmm. And what was that experience like?
I honestly absolutely loved the MTC. And that's just really strange to say, because most people hate it, as far as I have heard. I mean, you eat the same food, you have the same schedule.
Sounds like boot camp.
Yeah, you're stuck with the same people. But I loved it. I honestly learned a ton. I had some amazing teachers. I loved my district, the people that I was with. So some of us were going to Knoxville, and then some of them were going to Chesapeake, Virginia. And I was just really close with everybody. There wasn't anybody that I had any contention towards, and that was saying a lot. I just found everybody to be so spiritually intelligent, non-judgmental, and they really enjoyed hearing my perspective as a convert, and they would ask me questions and talk about my story.
And you're all there for the same reason.
Yes,
So
that sense of community, like no one is better than anyone else here. Like that was really
it's what you were
refreshing.
wanting.
Yes. And like we were just all in the same boat. We had no idea what was going on, and we were all going to learn together. And I loved that because I had been at such a disadvantage that being with people that, you know, felt like they knew nothing was just like a complete 180. I was like, this is amazing.
You
that
felt
we're
like
learning
it was like a
together.
level playing field.
Yes, 100%. And I never felt like I was less than there. And like every message was so uplifting. Everyone was so nice. Everyone wanted to know about why I joined the church and like how it could help them, help other people join the church. And it was like just honestly like the greatest 3 weeks ever. And I had zero complaints at all the entire time. Finally, that kind of started coming to an end when I was going to the airport to go out to the actual mission field. I was walking through the airport and I just felt like I was going to throw up. Like I could not keep a straight face. I was so exhausted. I hadn't been able to sleep. I had to get up at like 3 or 2 or something ridiculous to get to the airport.
It literally is like mirrored exactly with me joining the Navy and how much dread I felt.
Yes, it just makes you physically sick. And I was like, I am not cut out to do this. I think that the MTC, I should have quit while I was ahead kind of deal. But I mean, you don't stop when you're at the airport because then they're going to have to drive you and you alone home. And then my mom was going to have to come down to Provo and pick me up. And so I was like, hey, I'm going. But I was only supposed to call my mom on the phone because like the airport hadn't been remodeled yet. And they just had like the airport phones because I couldn't use my tablet and I didn't have a cell phone. So I was using this really old, dirty airport phone. I called my mom and I was like, hey, I'm leaving. And then I called my other friend, not you, sadly. I called my other friend.
I called you when I went to boot camp, so that's rude.
Well, it's fine. I had a crush on this friend. It was
Not
Gregory.
Gregory. Yes, Gregory.
So
anyway,
but I called Gregory and I was like, buddy, can you wake up? Because it was like 5 a.m. And I was like, I just need to talk to you. I need to talk to someone and I need to make sure that I can actually go out and do this. And he was like, yeah, you can go out and do this. And got to Tennessee. I was like, pretty hot here. They lost our luggage right off the bat. We stayed the night at a hotel, and then we got sent off to our areas.
Do you live in like a house with them? Like, do you have like a missionary house?
Oh, yeah. Like, they have a missionary couple, at least for our mission. There was a missionary couple in the office that, like, arranged housing and paid the rent and, like, set
did you have like
inspections.
was it like an apartment or did you live with like people?
Mine was an apartment. It was in, like, a townhouse kind of area. But so the first place that I was, it was like the basement kind of like, so there were townhouses and then you would drive a little bit farther on the back and then there would be like garages and stuff for those. But we had like mini apartments that were like tucked between the garages. But yeah, I mean, it was basically like I think I was 20 when I was out. Yes, I was 20. Basically just two, 19 and 20-year-olds living together, like best friends, even though I didn't know anything about my trainer at first. And that was probably just the worst decision I ever made to go out on my mission. And
but you love Tennessee now.
I love Tennessee. Tennessee is like the best place. So I have mixed feelings about it all. And
are you happy that you went and like tried?
Absolutely. I'm not disappointed in what I was able to do. I was out for 4 months compared to the 18 months that you're supposed to serve.
So you get on the plane anyway. You get here to your new mission place.
Yes.
You guys find housing. You're with your trainer. Did you start to feel better when you got there, or did you only start to feel worse?
Yeah, it went real downhill real fast. I just remember the very first day I was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing at all. My trainer started making herself lunch and I was like, what am I supposed to eat for lunch? Like, I couldn't even make that simple of a decision. I just felt so torn and stuck and confused and afraid. And she was like, just eat whatever you would normally eat. And I was like, I don't know what I would normally eat. I don't remember anything about my former life. This is my fresh start. I don't know.
I've just been born.
Literally is how I felt. And so, I mean, I made this peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and I just sat there and just contemplated the soonest I could get back on a plane to go home.
And did you tell your trainer how you were feeling, or were you keeping it in?
No, I shared everything. And she, bless her, she was not a therapist.
She was not trained for this.
Not her fault. She had no additional mental health training to deal with a really, really depressed and anxious 20-year-old. And
she's like, what am I doing here?
Yeah, she would just message our mission president and be like, hey, Sister Prusy is laying on the floor telling me she wants to die again. Like, what do I do?
Gosh.
And we didn't end up getting transferred apart from each other after 6 weeks. And I had someone else finish my training. And at that point, my mission president was kind of like realizing, hey, maybe she should not be out here and I need to kind of protect her, coddle her maybe a little bit more. And so my second trainer, I love both of my trainers. They were so sweet. But the second one was just like a lot more understanding. And I mean, it got to a point where I could not leave the apartment. I was just so terrified of everything that was out there. I would wake up and I would immediately start hyperventilating. She'd be like, okay, go back to sleep. We're not doing this today. And I did a lot of puzzles during that time. Missionaries probably don't get to do a lot of puzzles, but I sure did.
And you were communicating, because you were emailing with me.
Yes. I don't remember how my emails sounded.
At first, you were not. You were like, I'm kind of struggling, but like I'm excited to be here. And like you were telling me the good things. You sent me pictures of you and like all the girls on your mission. And then a couple weeks later, you were like, I can't be here. And then a couple weeks after that, you were like, I need to come home. So it's like you started off strong, even though you didn't feel strong. And then slowly and slowly and slowly, even with me, you wouldn't say exactly how bad it was. Like you didn't even tell me like how bad off you were mentally. So like I was even a little surprised when you came home, because you were saying like, I want to come home. And then the next week you'd be like, no, I'm going to stay. So you were kind of like a little back and forth.
I was very at war with myself because I wanted to know how far I could go. I wanted to know and see who I could help in that time. Like, and I was like, if I go home, I'm not going to help someone. I'm going to miss someone that was meant for me to meet.
Well, and it's also kind of like, you feel kind of like you failed.
Oh, completely. And I mean, I went into it saying like, whatever amount that I'm able to serve, like that'll be good enough. That'll be the amount that I was meant to serve. And I didn't really buy into, like, the stigma in the church culture that like you're broken or tainted or weak somehow if you came home early from your mission. Because like that has been a thing traditionally. But I mean, I don't care at all about people that come home early from their missions. I'm just like, hey, y'all okay? Like, yeah. I don't care.
But when
that
it's
they
you
failed. But yeah, it's different when it's you. I was like, am I giving up? Like, is this really what I'm supposed to be doing? And like, I would email my mission president an update every week, and he'd be like, sounds like you're doing okay. And I'm like, I wish I was okay. And I would just beg him to go home because I just didn't feel good enough or qualified enough. And
like they had you seeing a therapist out there.
Yes, so I did get to go see a therapist. That was like a once a week thing after I had my second trainer, and that helped a ton. But this therapist was like, I really think you should go home. And I was like, but I gotta fight.
Against yourself.
Against myself. I was literally at war with my own brain. And just doing the regular missionary things was just not something that I was able to do. I could follow a schedule. I was very good at being obedient. I didn't bring any personal books. I didn't dare, disobey my trainer when she told me to study something or do something. Like, I was very good at following the rules that they gave me. But, I mean, the actual acts of, like, going out and preaching door to door, that, like, completely destroyed me. And part of it was anxiety, and part of it was because, like, these people are in the Bible Belt. This is their religion, like, whatever they were.
And they believe. And they strongly believe.
Life. It is their whole life. And I was coming in and say, hey, I know this is your whole life, but I got something better. Like,
let me change your mind.
Let me change your mind. Literally. Let me change your mind like about your life.
Older people. Beliefs. And it's people who have like very thoroughly dedicated their lives to their church. And then you're coming in as a 20-year-old like, hey, never mind.
You're wrong.
Go do what I want you to do. Yeah. And it feels very like uncomfortable.
No, it was just like, I felt so out of my element, so underqualified. I was like, if I am going to come tell someone to change their religion, I shouldn't have been in a training center for missionaries for 3 weeks. I should have been there for 30 years.
And learned everything front to back.
Absolutely. And so I just had such a hard time trying to tell people that the way they were living wasn't enough, even though it made them so supremely happy. And I just found it so hard to testify of what I knew. I just didn't think it could even compare to the way that they felt about their religion.
Well, because the people in the Bible Belt think about their religion how people in Utah think about their religion. Like
Yes.
how the Mormons in Utah are. Imagine if somebody from the Bible Belt came door to door in Utah and was, trying to convert you. It would not go over well.
Exactly.
And it would be so uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. And that's exactly how it felt. And so eventually I was able to stop doing that because my mission president okayed it. I feel like I had a very unique mission, and I was just, coddled again the entire time.
Like, please
like,
let me leave.
I'm just a girl. I can't
just
go
a
out
girl.
and knock on doors. I mean, I still was able to meet incredible people from the ward. I, at one point, could only talk to, ward members because I already knew that they believed what I believed, and I didn't have to change their minds. There wasn't going to be an awkward situation. So I was like, okay, we can visit ward members all the live long day, and everything will be okay. And, I mean, eventually I did get to a point where I had panic attacks pretty much, 2 or 3 times an hour just about doing anything. Oh. And so I was homebound. I really wish I'd surfed during COVID because that would have been incredible.
You're just calling
I would have stayed out for so much longer. Oh, I probably could have made the phone calls though. I would have made my companion make the phone calls. I would have been locked in my apartment somewhere. And that, my mission kind of devolved into that. But the people that I met, I really felt strongly that they were family to me because they had all come from different backgrounds. It seemed like it was just so unique from the culture of Utah. Utah's in such a bubble where everyone was all raised in the church and believed the same things.
Mormons in Utah and Mormons in California are completely different.
Yes.
I think it's the society and the culture of Utah that makes it so different.
Yes.
But the people who just are practice their religion, it's not their entire life like it is in Utah.
Yeah.
They act very different. So I feel like it's a little bit easier to talk to those people.
Oh, completely. And they just had all come from so many different places. And there were former addicts, there were people with face tattoos, people from prison, people who, rebuilt their lives from the ground up because of the church. And I was like, these are my people that they weren't born into it and they have different perspectives. These are the people that I want to surround myself with and that I want to learn from because they were just so unique. And it was so refreshing to be around people that were not, the complete perfect Utah Mormon that I was used to seeing and that I was used to feeling, less than or belittled by. It was just I felt like I was on an island of misfit toys, from that Christmas movie. And I was just happy to be there. Movie. It is from the Christmas movie. I don't remember which one it is.
I know what you're talking about. So did your experience on your mission help you feel closer and more spiritual, or did it add things to your shelf?
My mission probably didn't add things to my shelf as much, but it did kind of make a permanent mark on my mental health because from the time that I left my mission, I think that I said I served for 4 months. From the time that I left, I was uncomfortable in any church situation from that point on. So leaving my mission, I left, I think, all of my positive spiritual memories and just the part of me that was spiritual and able to survive in an LDS church building, I left that person behind.
So that kind of concludes part 1 of Hannah's journey through the Mormon church. And so we've kind of established how she started and then how she got to the point after her mission to where she felt uncomfortable being in a church setting. And so in part 2, we'll kind of dive deeper into her thoughts after that and what led her to where she is today. So thank you for joining us for part 1 and stay tuned for part 2.